Hey guys, welcome back to Rooftop Talks. Thank you for joining me on my roof today. And I want to talk today about an idea I had, really. It's a form of activism, a very simple form of activism, extremely easy, extremely scalable. I'll also explain how I came to this idea. It's probably not that original, someone else probably came up with it, but if that's the case, then I want to promote this idea to you. See if it has legs. I'm going to call this thumbs down activism. Thumbs down activism, very, very easy. I think anyone can do it. I'll start by explaining how I came to this idea. I'm in Vienna in Austria right now. It's a very lovely city, but it does have a problem. There is a thriving industry here of the enslavement of horses for the tourism industry. Horse and carriage rides, basically. If you walk through central Vienna, which I do, every now and then, and you will always hear the clip, clop, clip, clop of horse and carriages. When this happened for me, and I heard the clip, clop coming around the corner of these horse and carriages, when this happened for me, it was in a summer heat wave. A heat wave. You could feel the heat radiating off of the tarmac on the ground, on these roads, tarmac roads. It was sweltering heat. And from around the corner came these beautiful, beautiful horses, clad in all of this leather, the leather of other dead animals, blinkers on, with a man standing over them with a whip, with a fucking whip in 2024. And the carriage they're pulling behind, there's this middle-class family who are treating themselves. They've got the bucket of ice with the cooler, with the wine in there, on this little tray table in the middle. And they're looking out over this beautiful colonial city with this smug satisfaction on their face, about 4 of them. What a disgusting sight. What a despicable sight to see in 2024. The enslavement of these animals. And I was here with my wife, I was walking along with my wife, walking, you know, using my legs. And I felt so sorry for these horses, these 2 beautiful horses that had no say in whether they worked that day in the heat wave, in the blistering heat, their feet slapping the tarmac. And me and my wife, we look at each other and we're like, well, we have to do something. I would feel really shit about myself if I didn't do something. So I just cut my hands together and I go, boo! Like, boo slavery! Boo slavery! So that was my first attempt at this. Boo slavery! And I get the feeling they didn't really understand what the hell I was talking about. So that one didn't really work. But there's a never-ending supply of these horse and carriages in central Vienna. And I know some people are probably going to start chirping up at this point in the video and say, well, you can't say that because this is their tradition. Let me make one thing clear. If your tradition involves abusing non-consenting animals, your culture, your tradition, it can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. You leave the animals out of this. You do whatever the fuck you want. You dance around the fire pit. You do whatever you want. You can stand on your head, you can paint yourself any color you want, you can do whatever you want if it's to your own body. You do not get to use culture as a defense when you force someone else to wear the shackles. Anyway, the next carriage comes around 5 minutes later. This one I changed my tactic. I say, leave the horses alone. That one worked better. Everyone, by the way, in Vienna, German is the first language, and I could have said it in German, but the tourists on the back, they probably have English as a language at least. So I decided to go in English. Most people here in the tourist sector understand English as well, and that one worked better, I think. And I pointed at the horses, and I said, they don't get paid to be here. They don't choose to be here. Because these horses and carriages, they slowly come around the corner and I just get to say whatever I want to them in the meantime. And it's been interesting looking at the reactions of the people on the back. This guy on the back of this carriage, he's looking at me and he's looking really uncomfortable. He's got this smile on his face, but it's like one of those smiles you get when you're in a really uncomfortable situation. It's like a coping mechanism. And he just goes like this. Right? It's like this body language as if to say, well, I know what you're saying. I know you disapprove, but I can't get off of this carriage now. Right? I can't get off now. That's very interesting, right? He was uncomfortable and he couldn't get off. Now, I'll explain how this works in our favor later for this kind of activism. But anyway, so I'm here doing this loud stuff, and it took a lot of courage. I had to build up courage to actually use my voice in this way. It was not something that I would instinctively do. I'm not the kind of person who deliberately wants to seek attention. I don't really get a kick out of it. I don't like it. I don't like the spotlight being on me. I felt compelled to do something, and that's what I decided to do. I look next to me, my wife. She doesn't have a voice that can carry that well, you know. I can turn the volume on to my voice. My wife doesn't. What she did instead, she just went like this. Right? She just makes the thumbs down. And I was like, oh, that's good. That's very good. All you have to do is this. I'm going to lose my voice doing this. Kind of taxing, you know, socially, emotionally, it's kind of taxing to do the voice thing because you feel like everyone can see you. This is easier, I think. And you can do it so easily. Like whoever you are, all you have to do is extend your arm out like this, rotate it downwards and protrude your thumb and just make eye contact with them. Make eye contact with the driver. Make eye contact with the people in the carriage on the back like this, right? They can have fun in a different way that does not involve riding on the back of a horse in the blistering summer heat wave with a guy standing over them, whipping them when they don't go fast enough for their liking. Even if you are not a full-fledged vegan, I think you're inclined to agree with me on this, right? I feel like even with non-vegans, even with anti-vegans, there's somewhere that we meet in the middle where they're like, oh yeah, but you know, there's no need for that, right? So you probably agree with me. I probably don't even need to make the case for veganism here in this video. The effect that I expect this to have, just by seeing people's reactions, is social discomfort, which then disincentivizes them to pay another time for one of these horse and carriage pulled taxi rides, right? Because socially, this is very uncomfortable for the people on the back, right? If you asked someone like, hey, I know, for a special treat, would you like to be paraded around on the back of this horse and carriage where people are going to look at you and they're going to disapprove of what you're doing? You're going to feel really uncomfortable. Someone might boo. Most people will just do this. Does that sound like a good time for you? Does that sound like something you'd want to spend money on? I don't think so. In fact, just one. If they see just one person do this, give them the thumbs down, makes them uncomfortable. I did this later on at a different time. I did the thumbs down thing. And I make eye contact with the people in the back. And this woman, I see her face just drop from like smile to like, like that. I don't find this fun. I just find that to be so telling of the power of just this very simple gesture. Just a very simple gesture like that can have that kind of effect on someone. And then the effect later on is that they're not going to do that again. I guarantee you. They will just decide to spend their money elsewhere. This is an industry involving modern day animal enslavement that should have ended a long time ago. This industry needs to move on. You can be a rickshaw. I went to Japan where there are rickshaws where the guys themselves are pulling the carriages and they get paid to do that. And they enter into that willingly with informed consent. I have no problem against that. because there is a consenting individual in that form of labor. That's great, that's fine. Japan have got the right idea. But Vienna, they rope these slaves into this, and there is no discussion of whether that horse has to carry people around all day, every day, during that heat wave. And the fact that this industry is still going on and is still thriving in Vienna just goes to show that there is not enough dissent. There's not enough backlash about it. And the funny thing is that Vienna is one of the best cities in the world for vegan options. There's a massive vegan industry here in Vienna. So why is it that they've got fully vegan supermarkets, but they also have a horse and carriage industry? It's because the vegans aren't doing anything about these blatant cases of animal abuse. That could all change with thumbs down activism. If you're a vegan, or you don't have to be a vegan, if you're an animal sympathizer in any way, you're sympathetic to the plight of the animals. When you see a blatant case, it could be someone walking their dog and just pulling on that leash and the dog is clearly choking and not having a good time, right? And legally speaking, you're not allowed to do anything about that. You can't do anything, they're property. But what you can do, what is legally within your right, is to extend your hand, point downwards, and protrude your thumb, like so. If every vegan in Vienna did that when the horse and carriages went past, I guarantee you the horse and carriage industry would be gone within a year. There'd be none left. And it takes no time out of your day. It's just, if you're in the vicinity of this kind of abuse, thumbs down, it's your vote. It's your public show of disapproval. And take it from me, I've seen, just from me and my wife doing this, we're just a regular looking couple, we don't look particularly crazy or anything. If you look crazy, then they can like write you off. The driver can be like, oh, don't mind them, they're crazy. They can't do that if you're a regular looking couple. The only way that this industry is able to perpetuate itself is by people seeing there being no downside to getting on the back of that carriage. We can eliminate these industries really easily. The thing is, as vegans, we actually have numbers. We actually have pretty sizable numbers. We can start throwing our weight around a little bit. We can start doing that. And this is one of those things, it's a small thing that has an outsized effect on the animals. We can actually get some of these tourist industries to leave the animals alone. I see it, it's right there. All we have to do is extend our hand. The first time you do it, it feels really uncomfortable. Like I had to be like, oh, come on, the animals need me. I had to remind myself, like, why am I doing this? Why is it important? Those horses need someone speaking up on their behalf because they are in bondage. But then once I did it the first time, the second time was easier. And the third time was easier than the second. And the fourth time was easier than the third. It gets easier the more you do it. Just do it once and then make it a habit every time you see it. The other thing I want to say is that non-vegans and anti-vegans have been benefiting from this double standard for decades of accusing vegans of judging others when in fact they are the ones who judge. They judge just as much, okay? Everyone judges. We should judge people doing the wrong things, okay? It's good to judge. It's good to be judged for doing the wrong things. Do not get it into your head that judging, regardless of context, is bad. It's good to judge people who are doing bad things. It's good to judge people who are behaving badly. So don't let an anti-vegan or a non-vegan try to shame you when you speak up on behalf of victims that are outside of yourself, where you have no motive, no selfish profit motive or anything for speaking up. Do not get it into your head that you are doing something wrong. I'd be interested with what you think of this. Thank you for hearing me out on this idea, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining me on my roof. Goodbye.
In order to understand how people were induced to obey unjust regimes and participate in atrocities such as the Holocaust, he set up an experiment. Volunteers were told they were taking part in scientific research to improve memory. Separated by a screen, the teacher would ask the learner questions in a word game and administer an electric shock when the answer was incorrect. He was told to increase the voltage with each wrong answer.
Cloud, horse, rock, house. Answer. Wrong. 150 volts. Answer, horse.
Oh. Experiment, that's all. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, please.
Continue, please. Go right on.
I refuse to go on. Let me out.
He refuses to go on.
The experiment requires you continue, teacher. Please continue.
Participants didn't know that the learner was really an actor and the so-called shocks harmless.
You're gonna get a shock. 180 volts.
Oh. I can't stand the pain. Let me out of
Can't
here.
stand it. I'm not gonna kill that man there. I mean, who's gonna take the responsibility if anything happens to that gentleman?
I'm responsible for anything that happens here. Continue, please.
All right, next one, slow. Walk, dance, truck, music.
Two-thirds of volunteers were prepared to administer a potentially fatal electric shock when encouraged to do so by what they perceived as a legitimate authority figure. In this case, a man in a white coat.
375 volts. I think something's happened to that fellow in there. I don't get no answer. He was hollering for less voltage. Can't you check in and see if he's all right, please?
Milgram's findings horrified America. They showed that decent American citizens were as capable of committing acts against their conscience as the Germans had been under the Nazis.